Down through the ages, there have been stories of people's bizarre eating habits. Of a dinner party in the Middle Ages where one man was given a whole pig to devour. Of another man consuming 1,000 oysters at a sitting. Today, people's eating habits are less bizarre, but they're just as silly and just as harmful. Take the case of Jim, the greyhound owner. A smart greyhound trainer named Jim knew the secret of keeping in trim. He exercised hard all round the backyard. His dogs all stayed slim, but not Jim. Jim's a real tyrant when it comes to diet. Everything must be measured precisely, weighed, and balanced. Jim knows that to get the most out of his dog, the dog must have a balanced diet. And woe betide anyone who interferes with that diet. Everyone knows that people are different to dogs. So when it comes to Jim's own diet, it's a different story. Jim stands a good chance of a heart attack. Or take the case of Ella. A busy young schoolgirl named Ella would have traded her spots for a fellow. But one look in the glass and alack and alas, they all changed to a bright citronella. Ella is always running late. She doesn't really have time for breakfast. She's always busy doing something. The people on the TV ads eat what Ella eats, and they're always slim and good-looking and have a great time. So eating those things makes Ella feel good. Only she seems to be putting on a few kilos here and there. Sometimes she's a little bit tired. And those spots don't seem to be going away either. A model apprentice named Pat left home to pay rent in a flat. He raged and he grooved, and his love life improved. But he did miss Mum's cooking at that. Pat's always been too macho to learn to cook. Living in a flat, he found that fresh vegetables don't have any labels telling you how to cook them. And frozen peas? Well, they were more trouble than they were worth. So Pat's found a good Australian solution to mealtimes. The only trouble is his skin doesn't look the best. He's not as regular as usual, and his performance at work leaves a lot to be desired. These problems can arise in all walks of life. A middle-aged sales rep named Kyle had a future as bright as his smile, till playing off hunches at long groggy lunches put a blot on his personal file. Kyle's firm is passing him over for promotion. He thinks it's because he's older than the other sales reps. That makes him depressed, so he has a few more drinks to settle his nerves. He's even having trouble getting the typist to type up his reports. Kyle is now convinced his colleagues are out to get him. In fact, he's a good mind to resign. But there don't seem to be any openings for good men at the moment. The trouble with Kyle, Jim, and Ella is that they've all been ignoring the 5 basic food groups. And so has Pat. The cereals. Fruit and vegetables. Meat and eggs. Butter, margarine, and cream. Milk and cheese. Because they ignored these 5 basic food groups, their health has been suffering. Pat has now decided to get fit. But will he go to the 5 basic food groups? No, Pat's got some friends who know a quicker and easier way to get fit. In fact, several ways. First, they told him about the Israeli diet. Then they decided the Air Force diet would give him a lift. They brought him back to Earth with the egg diet. It was enough to turn Pat to drink. Or, to be more precise, the martinis and whipped cream diet. Pat liked this diet best of all, so he stayed on it, and stayed on it, and stayed on it. Ella had a more scientific approach. She carried out rigorous research. She began experimenting. First, with the no-carbohydrates diet. Unfortunately, it wasn't a no-calories diet, and Ella kept putting on weight. Ella went back to the drawing board. Of course, something to burn up those unwanted calories. The grapefruit diet. And still those unwanted kilos came. But Ella had some friends. They lived in the country, and they'd been spiritually reborn with the aid of macrobiotic food. Pretty soon, Ella began to dislike eating so much, she started cutting down on food. Every day, Ella weighed herself. Eventually, Ella stopped eating altogether. And at last, she lost weight, and lost weight, and lost weight. They said Ella was suffering from anorexia nervosa, and they came and took her away. They said Pat was suffering from something else, and they took him away too. When Ella and Pat got better, they were told all about the 5 basic food groups. They were so excited they got married and lived happily ever after. And they had children, and they lived happily ever after. All because of the 5 basic food groups and the variety of appetizing and nutritious meals Pat and Ella could prepare in their own kitchen, which also lived happily ever after. This story was brought to you by the cereals, meat and eggs, fruit and vegetables, butter and margarine, milk and cheese, the Big 5. This story was brought to you by the cereals, meat and eggs, fruit and vegetables, butter and margarine, milk and cheese, the Big 5. I just said that. Sorry!